Hello, dear Cinepamina uh, buddies. Today I am with Aimee Kuge, director of Cannibal Mukbang. Cannibal Mukbang is an exploration with food, sexuality, and revenge. It's a movie about mukbang. Mukbang is the practice, is a Korean practice, if I'm not wrong, about like eating food on the streaming, like we are right now. Aimee did the feature film Cannibal Mukbang, and we're going to talk about Aimee, her career, and Cannibal Mukbang. Aimee, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to talk about the movie, and I'm just honestly honored that you enjoyed it and that you're taking the time out to talk about it with me. Appreciate you.
I am super happy. I deeply enjoyed your movie. I want to
Mhm.
know a lot of things. First of all, I want to know what kind of movies did you enjoy when you were young? What kind of movies did you watch when you were growing?
Yeah, so I actually was introduced to horror at a really young age. My mom is a big horror junkie, so growing up, we would just watch like literally anything that she was into. Like, I watched all the Blade movies and like all the underworld, like anything vampires she was into, any sort of monster film she liked. Like, we would watch like B, C, D level like horror and sci-fi. So the first movie I actually remember watching, like first strictly horror movie, was The Cell in 2000 with J Lo. That movie definitely scarred me and changed me. There's that, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's that scene when the horse gets like cut in half. I was just like,
Yes.
oh, okay, I guess I'm vegan now. Like, it really terrified me. So yeah, I grew up with horror, and I have my mom to thank for that. So yeah.
So when did you realize that you wanna tell stories through movies?
So I mean, I've always been interested in creating art. I used to be primarily focused on painting. I actually started college thinking I was just going to be a painter, but I
Mhm.
took a bunch of film classes the freshman year of college, and I just really fell in love with it. The first movie that I made in college was this like terrible horror movie where I act in it and I play Peeping Tom, and I'm like the serial killer with a bunch of
Mhm.
my friends, and I just had so much fun. I was in this horror film class with my professor, Janet Robinson. Shout out to her, she was amazing. Changed my life, and just the like collaborative aspect of making films was very attractive to me because in the past when I was painting or making any types of like physical art with, you know, just drawing or painting, it's so solo and you're just alone the whole time. So working on movies, you work with like 30 plus people usually on set, and just seeing this thing that you make together grow and blossom is really, really, really fulfilling for me. So yeah.
So you before like direct this movie, you produce a movie like Black Eyed Susan. How is
Hmm.
this like transition to like jump from producing a film to like start directing one? I think it's is I think the other question that I have is like you're really into because you produce another film called Doom Scroll, also like
Hmm.
related with certain practices with movies. So
Hmm.
how are you connected with the internet? Because your movies basically are like goes around the internet. And how did you jump from doom scrolling to Cannibal Mukbang?
Yeah, so Cannibal Mukbang, I actually came up with that idea back in like 2020, like started thinking about it and wrote the script in 2021. So it's been a really long process. I actually directed Cannibal Mukbang before I produced or co-produced Black Eyed Susan, but
Mhm.
the process of getting it out into the world and getting it on streaming platforms is really long. Like, we filmed that movie back in 2022. And then we had to edit it, and then I went to the festival circuit, and then I had to, you know, work with my distributor and like do all of the stuff in the background for that. So um, it's just been a long time coming. I feel like the jump was actually really easy for me. I've been working on films since 2011 now, so just having something that was my own, I really wanted to pursue something that I believed in a lot, and Cannibal Mukbang was a story that I really believed in. So yeah, I think that it felt really natural for me to transition from a role in the background, like producing a little bit more, to being more front and center as the director. Um, yeah, so it felt really natural. When it comes to the internet, I just think it's, you know, it's in all aspects of my life and all of our lives now.
Mhm.
The fact that I'm talking with you right now on a live stream, like it's just ingrained in us. So with Cannibal Mukbang, I just saw this rise in mukbangers and people paying to watch someone eat online, which seems so silly, but these people make millions of dollars doing this, and they're all
Yeah.
over the world, and it's so much bigger than we think it is. And it's funny because a lot of people that do watch mukbangs like don't like to admit that they do. Like
Mhm.
someone's watching it if these people have millions of subscribers, but in my day-to-day life, like the people I talk to don't really they don't start a conversation like, "Hey, did you watch that mukbanger last week?" It's
Mhm.
still kind of like an underground thing. And with Doom Scroll, my co-editor Haley Zalkin, who I actually went to film school with, uh, she was super fascinated by TikTok and how it just consumes you. Like she got really addicted to TikTok during kind of a depressing period in her life. So I think we can all relate to that, and I really wanted to help her bring that project to life.
Yeah, I mean, it's really curious. How do you feel right now? Even me in front of the camera, it's super HD, and I like
Mhm.
it because I feel kind of like a little bit vulnerable. But
Mhm.
how do you feel like the internet affect us as individual related with our bodies, desires, and our identities? Because I know a couple of weeks ago there was like the series Adolescence, and I was shocked. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, and there is a lot of things that goes through the internet that affect us. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's a big question, Eric.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, oh, the internet, I love it, but I hate it, and I think it does a lot of good, like connecting us and connecting, us with other people, and mukbang coming out during this time, and being available to people who can watch it all over the country, and versus it being a physical thing that you have to like go to a blockbuster or something to buy. Like it does erase that barrier for indie filmmakers. So in that way, I love the internet and I love being able to look up things and learn, like constantly be learning. But I think that overwhelm of information is also really bad and it stifles creativity like so much. Um, just being overwhelmed with things all the time. And yeah, a relationship to ourselves. God, I feel like the internet has caused so much more body dysmorphia than there would be if
Mhm.
you were just walking down the street and interacting with real life people, like at the grocery store. Now we see like hundreds and hundreds of people who have ideal bodies online just flooding us all the time. So I think it's really bad, but it's not going anywhere. So we might as well embrace it and make the best out of it.
I ask you that because I think this might be a couple of films part of an anthology on how the internet affects us as individuals. Because
Hmm.
it's a thing. So before coming here, I watched two movies about cannibalism. Of course, I watched yours, but I
Hmm.
also saw We Are What We Are, and I also saw Raw. That
Hmm.
they abort like the cannibalism thing in so different ways. But
Yeah.
what does cannibalism represent to you, and what does cannibalism represent in this history in particular?
Yeah. Cannibalism to me, I think like I wanted to write about something that genuinely scared me,
Mhm.
and I think that the idea of having to eat someone or being fed human meat without my consent or being forced to do that is terrifying. I haven't had meat since 2012
Mhm.
personally, so like eating human meat is such a huge jump, and I think that I just wanted to write about something that scared me. And I think that cannibalism throughout films and cinema history is such an interesting topic and it's so taboo and there's so much that you can read into it and so much you can interpret from it. Like with Raw, I mean, the familial ties that she has with her sister and how she's like coming of age in college. It's such a cool representation of cannibalism. And with Cannibal Mukbang, I wanted the cannibalism to be this relationship, like eating away at this man who is so desperate for affection that he'll resort to doing something morally that he doesn't stand for. Like he does stuff that he's uncomfortable with, and in a way, it's good for him. He grows. He kind of grows a pair of balls, throughout the story. Like he gets some agency, but in another way, it's really bad for him. So Yeah, I mean, when you eat or when you think about, like, eating people, I feel like there's this desperate nature to it, and I think that we're also desperate for a lot of different things. In Mark's case, he's desperate for attention, so he'll do that. He'll go there to get Ash to like him and to keep this relationship going.
That brings me another question because
Mhm,
we're going to get there, but first, there are elements of rape and revenge in your film. As a
mhm,
woman, as you grew up and thinking of the woman that you grew up with around, what you were trying to project, because we are coming from the times of the Me Too and
mm,
these kind of things. I relate a lot of rape and revenge with Me Too, even when the rape and revenge was before, and this is a way
mhm,
to get some catharsis. How this
mhm,
connect with this way to project a way of feminism in which women
mhm.
defend themselves?
Yeah, yeah, I think well, I love your question. Thank you, number 1, for asking it. Um, with rape and revenge, just growing up as a woman and all the women I know and the femme people I know, um, all of them, sadly, 100% of the girls that I have talked to or the femme people I've talked to have experienced either super uncomfortable sexual things, have had incidents, like terrible things happen to them, have been harassed, have gone through like assault and rape. One of my best friends growing up went through that, and it was truly just awful. And it's something that we can't talk about enough, you know. And it doesn't just happen with women; it happens with so many people, and especially in Cannibal Mukbang. Spoiler alert,
Mhm.
with Ash's sister, it's assumed that they're both getting raped by this man who kidnaps them. And I was just like writing again to what terrifies me the most. And what terrifies me the most personally is someone doing something to someone I love and like hurting them. And so I wrote Ash's character based on like I have a sister and I love her so much, and if something happened to her, I would fucking kill, like I would do crazy things. Like my anger, what I would do, the adrenaline that you get when you're trying to protect someone you love. Um, and I think that rape, you know, goes there. It's just such an awful topic, and you know, I'm something that I'm going to explore in almost every project I do moving forward. I think just because we need to confront those things as a society and as artists and show people representations of them, you know.
Yes, and I'm talking about that,
Mhm,
and talking about the April Gonzalo and Nate Wise.
mhm,
How do you balance this part of men, kind of like between the predator and the guy who needs to be more manly, without becoming a
mhm,
predator? Because that's like hard balance, right?
mhm,
The good guy who wants to be good, but not that bad in order just not convert into an predator, and becomes compliant either with the
mhm,
other predators or
mhm.
with the women. So what is the balance in between that?
Yeah, that's the core of mukbang, I think, is just this dilemma that Mark has to deal with at the end of the movie. Like, I think that I wanted to portray two different types of masculinity in the film. Maverick is the Patrick Bateman, American
Mhm.
Psycho, hyper masculine douchebag. Like, I don't know if
Mhm.
you're watching White Lotus, but here, like Saxon reminds me of Maverick a lot.
Mhm.
Um, just that type of masculine man who is just always trying to get laid and always trying to up his body count and prove that he's the alpha male. And then you have Mark, who's like the beta male, who is so shy and sweet, and you think that he's the good guy because he's not outwardly terrible. But then at the end of the story, like I would argue what he does is pretty bad, and what Ash does is pretty bad. Like none of them are good, and I didn't want anyone to think that like one of them was better than the other. Like, of course, I love Ash, ride or die
Mhm.
Ash. I'm Team Ash forever. But she also is not being a great person at the end of this movie, and she makes some insane decisions. Um, you know, that ultimately end in tragedy. And it makes you wonder how many times has this happened to her before? Is this like an endless cycle of her trying to like resolve something within her that she can't get from these relationships with these men where she kills them and eats them and or gets them to be like her sidekick? Like, um, yeah, I think that balance of like what is right and wrong is super interesting, and I don't want there to be a straightforward answer.
I love it. And I love the space for reflection. I think it's really
Mhm,
important so everybody has the chance to make their own conclusion. So
mhm,
your movie is very sexy at some point, and it's really weird, right? Because there is food. Sometimes at some point, food like
mhm,
watching people eating food at some point is grotesque. I
mhm.
remember one of the most horrible pieces of a movie, well, of the substance. It was not the monster. It was a guy eating shrimps.
Yeah, I love that scene. Terrifying.
But the thing is, how it's this kind of like between sexuality, sensuality, at some point obscene, because watching people eat stuff sometimes might be obscene. And
Yeah.
what is this relationship with all these kind of like roots that it has, like all gets together?
I think it all leads back to addiction.
Yeah.
Food addiction, sex addiction, love addiction. Um, I think that the grotesque nature of the food, like it's really good at first. It's kind of like when you're super hungry and you see a sandwich that you really want to eat, and you're like, God, that sandwich is so sexy. I'm gonna annihilate that sandwich. And then you get to the finish line of eating that sandwich and you have a few bites left and you're like, this is actually disgusting. I like ate too much. I ate too fast. This is way too much for me. Um, I kind of wanted that to be portrayed in Mukbang too, where like at first he has a bite of this relationship. He eats the tacos with her in bed and he's like, "Oh, this is really nice." And then as soon as he gets into the deep end with her and she's eating a person in front of him, he has to decide like, "Okay, how much am I going to gorge? Like how much is too much?" And he gets addicted to this attention, to this food. He gets physically addicted to eating humans after he starts with Ash, and he gets addicted to doing it with her. So I think that that sexuality is also wrapped up in there. Like he's you're thinking like, okay, they're gonna have sex at some point, right?
Yeah.
And the movie just teases you. Like I wanted you to be like, are they ever gonna have sex? And then it
Yeah.
finally happens and it's incredible. But then there's that sort of like addiction element, like you get what you want and you get this huge high. And then the come down is so intense. Like reality hits him and he's like, okay, maybe I'm not ready for all of this. Like this is way too much, and he freaks out. So yeah, I think that they're all so linked, and at the core of it, addiction is kind of like what I'm trying to represent with him and with Ash.
Yes, I feel, and there is something really funny in most of the movies that I watch about cannibalism. Overall,
Hmm.
they operate in society, and some common thing is once you try like meat, even if you didn't want it, you cannot
Hmm.
stop. It's kind of like it's like an addiction. That's how they portrayed it. Even in the American version of We Are What We Are, they
Hmm.
show like the old guy, the old patriarch has like a thing in the hand product of the addiction of the meat. So
Hmm.
it's very very interesting. So talking about your film, I when I saw it, I had like some vibes of Terrifier, of this kind of 80s 70s aesthetic. So I want
Hmm.
to know what inspiration you get. Where do you get inspiration visually and in the times like thematically to create this film?
Yeah, thank you. And you're totally right. I wanted it to look like 70s, 80s throwback. I wanted you to not really know when this time was. Like obviously it's pretty contemporary because she's online and she's an influencer. But I wanted there to be those elements and the throwbacks or the flashbacks, especially the dream sequences, especially that had elements of like for the first dream sequence, The Exorcist 3. I wanted it to look like that movie. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. There's that
Yeah.
gorgeous, like foggy white sequence, and I am really inspired by Frank Henenlotter and movies in the '80s that are just so bright and gooey and like blue. Like From Beyond has that amazing bisexual pink and blue lighting, and I wanted there to be some of that in this, but I didn't want it to be the whole thing. I wanted you to see like a whole visual palette, like a big charcuterie board of imagery in the
Mhm.
film. So yeah, and then with the 70s like throwback and the flashback sequence that we shot on 8 millimeter, I wanted that to look really intense and like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something that you like dug up, like maybe you find this like spoolie of film in the dirt and you watch it and you're like, what is this? This is so scary. Kind of have that like timeless, scary quality to it that I think that film has and a lot of those movies from the 70s have.
Yes, and about like the filming process, um,
Hmm.
and like having all this gore stuff, I believe
Hmm.
it's most of the effects are practical. I don't see any kind of like CGI, or at least I could not perceive it, which is good.
Hmm.
Like, how was there was some scenes that were like hard to shoot, but all when they are eating like human flesh or they are kind of peeling human beings. There were a time where the actors say like, "I feel a little bit uncomfortable" or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we shot this film really fast. Principal photography was 14 days, so everything was
Oh,
just as fast as it can be, you know? And there were a lot of scenes where the actors, especially April, had to eat a lot of food. And she has a pretty sensitive stomach. She doesn't eat a lot of food. She has some intolerances. So when we're eating, we had to be mindful of that. But she's a freaking champ, and like for instance, in the flashback sequence, she's eating the man, like literally tearing meat from his body that April's mom had cooked. It was a pot roast that I had covered in a bunch of fake blood that was edible. And off camera, like there's some scenes of me holding the like fake
really?
blood. Like I'm holding a bowl and she's like spitting the meat into the bowl. And I'm like, "Are you good?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I can go again." And so, just making sure that we all communicated and that we're all comfortable and uh, that if the actors needed a break from eating, they would get a break. The other scene where they ate a lot of food and it was a little uncomfortable was the charcuterie board when Mark comes to Ash's house and he's sick and she serves him a bunch of food. What they're eating is just Rice Krispie treats covered in maraschino cherry juice and like chocolate syrup.
Mhm.
And they ate that for like 4 takes. So they're just like eating so much of this sugary stuff and they were just so sugar high after that. They're like, "Well, we need water, we need a break." We can't. I'm like, "Don't worry, we got it." But I made them do that whole scene like 4 times because it was a really important scene and I wanted to get that kiss especially in that moment when she's like crawling on him. Like that was so important. So we had to do that a lot.
Yes, something that I want to ask you: do you believe, like, at some point we pass through different generations, but I feel like as we advance in movies, there is a little bit less sex in on the screen.
Hmm.
So, how do you determine, like, to make it like full R, like to
Hmm.
show like sexy scenes during the screening, and what is how do you make that decision to like actually like make something make the foodie a really sexual being?
Yeah. Well, growing up, I told you how my mom showed me a lot of horror movies.
Yes.
She was fine with me seeing people get eviscerated, get their heads chopped off, shooting each other, any violence she was cool with. But anytime someone kissed or like anyone got naked or there's any intimacy, she'd cover my eyes. She'd be like, "You
Yeah.
can't watch." So growing up, I'm like, what is this that I'm missing? And as soon as I was able to, I watched tons of, intimate things and sexy movies. And I always knew that I wanted to have sex in films. I think it's so important. I think that we need to be able to show that the things that actually happen with humans and like it was important to me to have this intimacy in the film be really special and to feel real and to feel like you're like looking in this couple's life, like the moment that they see each other naked for the first time or have sex. And yeah, I mean, I always knew that I wanted to put that in this movie. I think that the sex is so important, especially to the overall themes of like addiction, of trauma, of toxic relationships. Like we had to see it. And I think that things are getting better. Like I feel
Mhm.
like I've seen a lot of pretty good sex scenes in movies, but they're all just so fast and so like,
Because
okay, we're making out and then you're thrusting and then we're done. And I'm
Mhm.
like, where's the foreplay? Like, where's the tension? And I wanted this movie to have a lot of tension and foreplay, which is why they don't have sex for the first like 2/3 of it.
And it's really funny because I don't think it's only sex. Is when the things happen, it's actually a
Mhm.
connection between the
Mhm.
the protagonists, because
Mhm.
there is sex, but that's kind of like a hook. It's like a hook.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
when Ash and Mark finally connect this connection, and it's a connection that Mark was looking for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So it is interesting how like when the good narrative you can show that sex is more than sex. It's actually like a way to connect people. And it's a form of communication. So I really like that part because it was like well landed.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you're very welcome. And what do you hope viewers will question after watching your movie?
Oh, I want them to think about whose side they're on and why. I want them to think about like who they think was like right in the situation and why. I think that the moral questions that come up after this film are the most interesting parts of it. Um, and I want them just to have fun. Like I really just if you feel anything from the movie, then I'm happy. Like if you love it, if you hate it, if it made you laugh, if it made you smile or cry, that's what matters to me. I think that movies need to or should elicit some sort of emotional reaction. So, you know, anything. I mean, I'm happy for people to just watch it. And I really want April Consolo and Nate Wise um, and Clavon Karlowitz to go far. I think they're amazing actors. And my DP and gaffer, Harrison Kraft and Danny Rinaldi, are amazing. And I really want them to go far. So I hope that this piece is something that they can be proud of and that people can see and connect with my collaborators and my cast afterwards.
Yes, I watched the
Mhm.
movie on Amazon Prime, but I want to ask you where
Mhm.
else we can find your movie.
So it's right now, I know it's on Fandango, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and in Canada, it's like on these random Canadian streamers. I am forgetting their names right now, but I
Okay.
know it's available in Canada. The film will be available in other regions at some point. I can't say when or where,
Okay.
but we're working on it, and it will be available on Blu-ray on April 22nd. So this Tuesday, you'll be able to order it, and the Blu-ray is beautiful. The cover is awesome. It's exciting. So yeah, those are the places right now. And then any updates, if you follow my Instagram at Malty Feelings or Cannibal Mukbang Film, then the announcements will go there. I'm working with Wellgo USA, so they'll announce things too, and Jackrabbit Media will announce things too.
Yes, Amy, I want to here I cut because this is the part that I take it to the TV. But
Hmm.
uh, besides the cut, I want to ask you. I believe you're a producer and you're a director,
Hmm.
and I know like to put a film, it's tough thing because you are not only putting the film together, you are like chasing people to produce, distribute, to like you
Yeah.
have to do casting. How how hard is to produce a film, and how we can help emerging filmmakers as you.
Whew, yeah, I mean, honestly, just yeah, I mean, that's the hardest part, like getting a crew together. And honestly, post-production is extremely difficult and no one talks about it. Like I co-edited this movie. Harrison Kraft, who was the DP, color corrected it. The sound process was insane. I worked with a friend, I worked with a lot of people to get the sound process complete for delivering the movie, and no one talks about that, and they don't teach you it in film school. So I'm really hoping that that changes. I hope that people are more transparent with how things go, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody who is trying to make something about what they can do to try to get it going. Helping indie filmmakers, connecting with people that can provide you either with like locations or even give you feedback on like what you're working on, like the little steps are how you get somewhere. Like you can't just go from nothing to everything. You know, you have to take those steps. Like if you have a script, be so happy to like tell everyone about your script. Send people your script that you trust. Like take feedback and be humble with it. Like mukbang, the script process was like a year and a half before I even thought about making it. You know, like I submitted it to a lot of festivals to get feedback. And I think that just putting yourself out there is like the number one tip I can give people is we all have these amazing ideas and I want to see all of them happen, but you can't do anything unless you talk about it and you put yourself out there and you make those connections and go to the networking events and tell people I'm a filmmaker. Even if you've never made something, you know, outside of your room, like you're still doing it, you know? Like don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think that's my biggest tip.
Yes, I think that's the most important thing that I want to share,
Hmm.
because sometimes I see people like you. Overall, I have been seeing like a lot of women in horror films, which I love, because
Hmm.
I consider, for example, Rape and Revenge being a genre designed for woman, but the original Rape and Revenge movie, it's a movie directed and written by a man, and I want to
Hmm.
know what is Rape and Revenge from the perspective from somebody, well, not who has suffered rape, but was close or have suffered some sexual aggression. It changed a
Hmm.
lot hearing different
Hmm.
voices and putting it out there.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Would love
Yes,
to hear more diverse voices and just people who have something they're excited and passionate about. Like just talk about it. You know, don't be afraid to be cringe.
yeah,
It's really lame to be afraid to be cringe. We're all going to be cringe, and that's fine. Cringe is cool.
yes. And finally, just to close,
Hmm.
I want to ask, what is next for you? What are you working right now?
Oh, well, now it's my time to be cringe. So I have another script that I'm very proud of, and I am trying to get made. It's called Trust Me. It's emo horror comedy. It's
Mhm.
really fun, and it's based in 2004. And there's demons and a lot of sexy stuff, and
Okay.
it's more of a like friendship, self-harm, rock and roll, like just like chaotic movie. It's very different from Cannibal Mukbang. It's like a lot bigger and there's a lot of music in it.
Okay, and how
Mhm.
we follow your Instagram as well to like follow this project, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So we follow you in multi feelings.
Yeah, melty feelings.
Okay, well, Amy, it has been wonderful to have you today. I hope to meet you in person. You are not that far from
Mhm.
here. You're not far from
I
Philly.
know. I know. I want to hang out. Thank you, Eric. I'm really happy that we were able to do this and yeah, thank you for just elevating the independent filmmakers in the community. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I am going to fight to have like a screening around Philly of your film.
Yeah,
You're not
100%.
you're not far. So,
Mhm.
and if we can have you here just to have a nice talk like this, it will be
Mhm.
amazing. So,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Amy, and follow Amy Kuge and Melty Feelings on Instagram.
Thanks, Eric.
Well, thank you, Amy.
Bye.
See you around. Bye bye.